Welcome to Know Before You Go for the 29th Sunday in Ordinary Time. My name is Father Brendan Curran, Dominican Promoter for Justice and Peace for North America. I'm joining you from our beautiful Dominican convent, our Dominican Priory of St. Dominic's in Bogota, Colombia. Here we are gathered and have just completed the International Dominican Commission for Justice and Peace meeting, gathering delegates from all over the world, from Africa, from Europe, from here in South America, Central America, and of course, from North America. Representative delegates from all of the branches of the Dominican order seeking to recognize where we have seen hope and where we are struggling and how we can launch a better year as ministers, as promoters of justice and peace. In many ways, how fitting for these readings today. All of our readings today call us, draw us, push us to recognize perseverance and resilience. That's a gift God has gifted to each and every one of us. But so often to each of us, certainly for me, I have my doubts. I don't believe I can really do some things. And yet God gives me the strength in times of peril to lift me up. That's the gift of the readings today. First reading from the book of Exodus. The Israelites are fleeing Egypt. They're in the midst of a deserted area, arid place, no place for food, struggling. Many of them have doubts. Some have turned away. And yet in the midst of this, we see a surprise attack by foreigners, the Amalekites, who seek to destroy them. Many of us would assume, oh, this group is in trouble. They must have to turn back around and go back to their oppressors. But in the midst of that, the voice of Moses was calm, cool, and reminded the Israelites of keeping their focus of faith. Instead of panicking, like Moses had back in Egypt, when God called him to lead the Israelite people out of slavery, God needed to call Aaron to be at his side to reassure Moses, I have called you. Here you can see the new strength of Moses. He goes to the hill, reminds the Israelites, we will be with you. God will be at your side. Even in the midst of your oppressors, you will survive. That is a strength we deeply need now and again in our lives. And I'm sure many of you who are listening and reflecting with us are going through your share of crises right now. As we need reassurance, we are reminded of the second reading today, the letter to Timothy. A beautiful reminder, but a bold reminder to us that we are called to be bold. That second reading, the letter to Timothy, we hear a proclamation, a bold challenge. Remain faithful to what you have learned and believed. Be persistent, whether inconvenient or convenient. Be persistent. It's a reassuring voice for peoples of a new Christian community who are oppressed, who are being threatened, who are not sure even how they should follow this new way of Christ. But somehow, some way, through those gifts of strength, through the reassurances of letters like this letter to Timothy, they persevere. And there's no better clear way of an example than the beautiful but powerful reminder of us in the gospel today, the gospel of Luke. There is an unjust judge, a corrupt judge that encounters a poor old widow. The poor old widow was a voiceless person in the community. But yet she demanded justice and dignity restored for all who have offended her. So she came to this unjust judge day and night. She refused to let go her voice. She constantly nodded him and made sure that he heard her voice out. And this unjust judge, after just feeling exhausted by the widow's persistence and resilience, heard her out and rendered a just judgment. Oh, how it has a lesson for us to learn. How we so many times give up. When we're surprised by an attack of a crisis of our family or our health, we want to give up. When we are not sure if God will be with us in the midst of an attack, like Moses and the Israelites, we forget that we need to band together, that we are a community alive and tied and knitted to one another. That's the strength of God. That's the strength that got the Israelites through this oppression and the surprise attack from the Amalekites. That's the strength that was gifted with the letter to Timothy that we read in the second reading this week. Be persistent, whether it is convenient or inconvenient. And yes, like the voice of the widow in the gospel. What that means to us directly in my experience here in Colombia is seeing a wonderful witness community in a neighborhood on one other end of Bogota, Colombia, where our friars have a parish of St. Dominic. Those families have bounded together in the midst of years and years, almost 2 generations or more of civil war, of bloodshed, of disappeared people here in Colombia. There is still areas of control by paramilitary groups around the country of Colombia as I speak to you. But the parish of St. Dominic in a neighborhood of Bogota that is a mixture of people who have fled their lands in different parts of Colombia because of the war, the civil war over the years, their own death threats and attacks on their own families. They moved to that neighborhood. For others, there's no jobs in their rural communities across Colombia. So they've sought a bold move to the capital city here in Bogota to find access to a future sign of hope for their families so their families could remain resilient. And yes, communities in the midst of poverty. This is the community of a parish that has been building up their strength over these years and insisting on the Dominican friars to make their parish alive. Not only that, 2 years ago, they built a new church right in the midst of this very impoverished neighborhood to be a sign, a beacon of light, of hope in the midst of families, some of which don't have access to running water. Some of it, all of them have tin roofs. Some of them have carton buildings supporting their houses in the midst of that area. This is the resilience that is called to us from the widow of the gospel. These are the men and women and children that refuse to give up and are persistent to see and are resilient to see that God is at their side, who have called our friars to build a parish and make a new church their home, to be that sign of hope for a new reality of Colombia and Bogota. That inspires me. It's also a reminder to each and every one of us, whether it's the plight of the crisis of immigrants in Chicago, where some of you are living and we are ministering, as you know I do, we need to feel those signs of hope in the midst of struggle, in the midst of feeling seemingly attacked by others, even our own brothers and sisters, in what is supposed to be a uniform in our immigration struggle. Today, we are each reminded, where is the resilience and persistence of hope that God is calling from each and every one of you? The widow believed in it, in the gospel. An unjust judge who refused to hear her story, who refused to listen to her out, who refused to render her a just judgment, did so by her persistence. Of the Moses and Israelites, who even in the midst of a surprise attack, yet another setback in their journey towards the promised land, continued to persevere. Moses standing as a beacon on a hill, guiding the Israelite people to get through. And yes, the voice of the letter to Timothy, reminding to each of us, this is not a journey, our journey of faith, that is one that calls us to only celebrate the good times. This is our call to put our faith in action in times of trouble and crisis. It's what we've been called to. It's what for generations peoples have done before. It is now our turn. As I hear the proud voices of hope here from the country of Colombia and the proud friars, sisters, laity, and youth movement who stand in the midst of fear and say bold and proclaim boldly, God is here. God gives us with hope, and we are ambassadors of hope for our world. Use that strength. Use that perseverance. Be that sign of Christ for our world. Blessings to each of you.